Welcome to Whaler Talk, hosted by the Hartford Whalers Booster Club. I'm Jerry Irwin with Peter Hindle from theexaminer.com, and tonight our special guest is Bob Crawford, play-by-play voice of the Connecticut Whale, the Hawk. And we appreciate you coming on tonight.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it as well.
Well, it's really great to have you here. And Jerry was leading into our first question. I always wanted to ask you, how did you get the nickname the Hawk?
Well, I tell people it's because of my hawk-like vision and predatory instincts, but really and truly it's because of my very large beak. And I don't know what the camera angles are like, but if you shoot me from a certain angle, you're going to need a wide-angle lens. But and also my first job, I grew up in Chicago, so I was a Blackhawks fan growing up, and my first job was with the Detroit Red Wings organization with their AHL affiliate in Glens Falls, New York, which was called the Adirondack Red Wings. So lifelong Hawks fan working for the Red Wings is sort of a dichotomy. That intensified the whole Hawk thing.
Yeah, that makes makes a lot of sense. So.
But a lot of guys with big noses in the game of hockey get called Hawks. It's a beak bird, proboscis avian thing, I guess.
There you go.
So there's some people out there that would like to know, do you work for MSG or do you work for WSE?
No, I work for Whaler Sports Entertainment. Mm-hmm. My position is considered to be part of the marketing, public relations arm of the team. So who my paycheck was coming from depended on who was running that end of the business. Okay. Back when I worked for the Binghamton Rangers, before the team came here, it was locally owned, and I worked for the guys who owned the team. It was called Broome Hockey Associates back then. Then when that team moved here, those guys sold the team to Madison Square Garden. So I became a Madison Square Garden employee. Then in 2007, when through the RFP, MSG lost control of the building and subsequently gave up the marketing end of the team over to AEG. I became an AEG employee. And then 2 summers ago, or 2 falls ago, I guess, when Howard's group, Whaler Sports and Entertainment, took over that end of the business from AEG, then I became a Whaler Sports Entertainment. So I've got a lot of different paychecks.
A lot of different bosses. A lot of different bosses.
Yeah, one heck of a tax return.
It's been pretty interesting. But I've been very, very lucky. All those guys, all those entities have treated me terrifically well. I didn't know the Baldwins real well before this last transition. I knew and greatly respected people that knew and greatly respected them, and always said good things about them, and it's all turned out to be true. Yeah, so I consider myself very lucky in that aspect. A lot of people have gone through a lot of franchise and business changes, and it's really negatively affected their career. But I've been lucky enough that it's been just the opposite for me. And
you've been the broadcaster for the team for the 15 years they've been in Hartford. So you were here at the beginning, and just like Ken Jenander. Yep. What is Ken Jenander like? It's something that the fans don't really know. He's kind of like one of those coaches where you're wondering what makes him tick. What goes on in his mind.
Yeah, he doesn't give up a lot easily in terms of facial expressions and outward displays. Right. But he's the interesting thing about Ken is he's one of the most entertaining guys I've ever been around. If you're lucky enough to get close to him, or he'll open up a little bit. He's a tremendously intelligent, funny guy, and one of the wittiest guys I've ever been around. So it's hard to trade quips with him because he's always one up on you. So really? A terrific guy. It's a tough. Coaching is a tough role. You got a lot of pressure on you from a lot of different angles. Yeah. You have to make sure that you have 25 guys ready to go, as opposed to when you're a player, you only have to worry about one guy being ready to go. And that really wears on a guy like Ken, I think, because he's a real perfectionist. So he takes it hard when things don't go well, and when not everybody's approaching it the way that he would want to, but still he's when you can get him in his private moments and he lets loose a little bit, it's very entertaining. It's a lot of fun, and you learn a lot as well.
I was watching the YouTube releases of the post-game interviews with the press, and wow, one night the team didn't play to his expectations, and they lost the game, and this one reporter just kept on going at, and he's like, really? He goes, we didn't play well. We lost the game. And I was like, he's asking the same question. Yeah. Poor Ken is trying to be very professional and doing his thing, and you could tell it was really, it was affecting him. So I felt bad for him. Yeah.
Well, we were discussing some of the road trips between Jerry and I, and so when you take a trip to Norfolk, which is probably one of their longest rides, or to St. John's.
Yeah.
I think those are the 2 longest trips you had this year.
That's right.
Are you traveling with the team? Are you on the bus?
Yeah, well, you can't bus to Newfoundland.
No.
You need
oh,
oars
okay.
on the
Don't
bus,
even know that, yeah.
Yeah, Newfoundland is actually an island. So
Okay.
you have to go to either to Halifax, Nova Scotia, or Toronto. We actually flew out of Toronto and all the way out to St. John's, Newfoundland. So that's a long trip. That was our one plane trip of the season. And Norfolk's just a long bus ride. And on the way down, they broke it up. We left 2 days early, and we stopped off in Voorhees, New Jersey, which is where the Philadelphia Flyers have their practice facility. Had a practice, and did the rest of the trip the next day, and then played 2 games down there, and after the second game, all the way back. But it's it's the dead of night on the bus.
Oh,
it's pretty comfortable buses, so it's pretty easy to sleep and get some. You don't get the kind of rest you would if you were lying in bed, but it's still, it's not it's not like you're riding on top of the bus or anything like that. Strapped into a car seat or anything like that, plane seat. So the travel's a lot of fun. When I was really young and first doing it, I wasn't married, didn't have to worry about being away from a family. It was really fun. It was a great time, and always enjoyed looking forward to getting on the road. Right. Nowadays, it's something you get through, and a lot of the time, a lot of good times, especially when the team's going well and you get a chance to get a little closer to the players and the coaches and have some meals with them, and you're in close quarters, so you get to learn a little bit more about what makes them tick and things like that. But
kind of part of the family.
Yeah, and they're very good about that. Once they trust you, they bring you into the fold, and they assume you're part of the group, and if you don't give them any reason to assume otherwise, they keep you a little bit at arm's length, but you're basically part of the crew, and it's fun. It's I got a family at home now with 2 kids, 11 and 13, and have all kinds of activities going on. So I don't enjoy being away as much as I used to, but still, you have some great times, and you see some fun things and some great games and great buildings as well.
That was actually my next question for you. Was as you said, like you have some fun. Is there a favorite arena? An away arena that you like to broadcast from, or a certain arena that...
Most of them are all pretty good. There's a few that I don't particularly care for, but I think if I had to pick one that stands out as the nicest building in the league, it'd be Hershey. It used to be, the Hersheypark Arena was one of those old-timey, great personality barns where the press was basically sitting in seats with the fans almost. I mean, that's how in tight and close to the action you were, and that was a great funky experience as well. But when they built the new building in Hershey, they kind of kept some of the character and the look of the old place, and they built all the bells and whistles in, and built just a beautiful press box with a gorgeous view, and made everything easy and tidy for you to work. So I'd say that's probably the one that if you had to build one, you'd kind of model it after.
Right. Now, we were talking about working for the Baldwins, so you were kind of involved in this whole rebrand situation. How impressed were you with how the rebrand went, and what was it like that night when they had 13,089 in the building, and it probably was pretty loud. Was it difficult to broadcast at all?
No, that makes it even better.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you look for. I mean, I flashed back to the very first Wolfpack game when we'd moved from Binghamton, which was a small arena and a smallish market. Great fans, great atmosphere for a small building, but when you're walking out onto that catwalk at the Civic Center, and there was, I forget how many we had there, 12,000 or whatever it was for the first
crowd.
Yeah.
It was a whole different animal, and I remember walking out there saying, "Man, this is different.
Yeah,
this is a different level, different kind of market." And and it had been a long time before that November 27th game of last year that we'd had a crowd in the XL Center like that, and it's electrifying when you get. And luckily it was a great game, brand new uniforms. I happen to like the uniforms a lot, and it was fun to see those. So, yeah, that was.
You got to win.
Yeah, and it was a great game,
win.
Won in the shootout. So that was it was all kinds of positives. And you never know. I wasn't here when the Whalers were here. I didn't really have my finger on the pulse like you guys do of what the affection for the whole Whalers brand was like. I'd been here with the Wolfpack for whatever it had been, 13, 14 years, and I knew it was a great hockey town. I didn't honestly know was the rebrand going to totally revitalize the franchise? Was it going to be huge? Was it not going to make a peep? I was obviously hopeful that it was going to be big. I didn't honestly. If you told me that it was going to put 13,000 people in the building, I would have been pleasantly surprised. But yeah, that was a great night, and it certainly showed that. move toward that
Sure.
Whaler identity again, even though it's the whale, not the Whalers,
Right.
and the colors and that kind of thing. That there's
Right.
some definite power to that. There's no question about it.
And that brings up, when you feel that electricity, and you're coming from Binghamton, and you've heard all this stuff about, how Hartford was back in, and when the Whalers were here. What is the potential now for hockey in Hartford? I mean, where do we stand? You have some great past with the Wolfpack, and they filled that building. They went to the Calder Cup finals and then won the Calder Cup. They packed them in there. We had some great crowds of 10, 12,000. You really built a great foundation with the Wolfpack. Now with the Whale, we see some bigger crowds, but not consistent. Where are we confused in Hartford about what's going on with the hockey market? And really, that's what I get from someone like you. You've been around the block a bit here.
Yeah, I think there's great potential there. I mean, obviously the market has proven when it's excited about it. It is a great hockey market. People love hockey. There's a significant segment of the population that really loves hockey. It's just a question of getting that whole population plus a lot of casual fans excited. And there have been times, obviously, when that's happened. It's all come together. We had a crowd of 11,000 this January, the great group night. We had the rebrand last year. We had the outdoor game last year. I mean, it's possible to do. We got to find a way to do it on a regular basis. Hopefully, we get to the business model in the state now in the AHL where it's financially feasible to go forward long term and really be successful, and then have the best AHL franchise in the league. And if you can do that, if you can be up there with the Hershey's, and Winnipeg did it, the Manitoba Moose for a flagship franchise in the AHL. Now that's an NHL market again. The possibilities are limitless. You never want to put a ceiling on it and say, well, this is what it is. It's going no further. But on the other hand, you kind of got to build it up from the ground up as far as making a significant statement to the hockey world that, okay, Hartford is really, really serious about this sport on not just a sort of few nights a year basis, but hey, this is you're leading the league in attendance, and people are clamoring for more.
Right. And that's what it really comes down to, is the tradition that Hartford enjoys with the hockey is long. It's a long tradition we have, and everyone kind of blows it off that we don't have an NHL club, but it's Hartford hockey, and that's what people have to remember.
Sure.
We're approaching 40 years next year.
Right.
That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I was going to mention. You've had so many games that you've broadcasted. Is there like one that sticks out in your mind, like, wow, that was just, I'll never see that again, or I'm glad I got to call that game, or are there just so many that you can't even?
Well, I think for me, playoff overtime. There's nothing in sports like playoff overtime in hockey, and the Game 7 overtime winner that Terry Virtue scored in 2000 to eliminate Providence after we'd been down 3-1 in the series. That's something I'll never forget. I think I flash back to that and get goosebumps more than even the game that clinched the Calder Cup, because I think everybody kind of knew the Whale, there's my confusion again. The Wolfpack were going to win that series with Rochester once they got past Providence, and that series was never really. But the series with Providence was up for grabs.
That was unbelievable. I sat to the right of the net, and my buddy and I were there, and when it went in,
to win it like that,
it was amazing.
And there was another one that actually the first year I ever was in pro hockey was 1988-89, and we had a similar thing with the Adirondack Red Wings against Hershey. Ironically, a team that John Paddock coached, the Hershey Bears, won a Game 7, actually in a series that we had trailed 3-0, came back and won 4 straight, won Game 7 in front of a capacity crowd at the Glens Falls Civic Center on an overtime goal by Adam Graves, who nobody really knew much about then, and turned out to be a Hall of Famer.
Phenomenal player.
Yeah, those are the ones. And I was lucky enough to be around 2 Calder Cup teams with Adirondack too, and I almost those Game 7 overtime winners. I almost remember more than anything.
Right.
That's great. Right.
Now you mentioned that now that you have a family, you don't really enjoy the travel like you used to. Would you ever want to broadcast in the NHL one day, or is that too much travel?
No, I think that's kind of what everybody's after. If you're in the game, you want to get to the highest level, and you want to it's a more profitable living at that level. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the ultimate goal of anybody who's working in the sport. But I look at this market here, as far as what I do, is kind of an NHL that's not in the NHL. I mean, with the way the Baldwins approach things, with the way the Rangers, I mean, they've really, everybody who's been in control of this team throughout its history has tried to run it as close to an NHL team as you possibly can in terms of doing things the right way, making sure that all the little things are taken care of in order so that every part of the business can have success, whether it's in the locker room, on the ice, or in the offices. So I've felt lucky that way. I've never worked in the NHL, but I haven't felt like I've missed out on anything.
Right. Well, you know, we were talking, Jerry and I were talking actually earlier about what was it like going through in January this year when the team had that 11-game winless streak. That must have been kind of tough to broadcast the games and then get some of them were heartbreaking. And
yeah, it would have been one thing if they were just getting blown out and they weren't showing up every game. But you look at that streak and they had, I think, 3 overtime losses and 2 shootout losses. So there's 5 games out of 11 that you had a point in. And then there were, I want to say there wasn't any game in that streak that was a loss of more than 2 goals. So it was just, like you said, it was tough to keep coming close and having them not get a win, but it wasn't like they were laying down and dying. So I wasn't surprised that it turned around, and it's funny that the next month, February, almost didn't lose, and there were probably a few of those that they pulled right out of their hat that they, by all rights, they should have lost. So I think through that whole streak, you kind of had the feeling that they were close and it was going to turn around, and that was kind of proven in February.
Yeah, it's been a weird, streaky year. I think before the new year, you know, they were doing great. They were in first place by, you know, and actually they built a big enough cushion where they were able to hold off Bridgeport, but now we're looking at it.
all the call-ups as well.
Right.
I mean, you look at how many people went up to the parent club. And now you have, and you're still maintaining that. When 3 points behind.
They're 5 now.
Actually,
Bridgeport won today.
Bridgeport won, and actually had a school day morning game today. They beat Springfield.
School day morning.
But but it's, you know, that's kind of the nature of the beast too. Hockey, especially at the AHL level, when you're dealing with call-ups and injuries all the time, when you get a good lineup and you're in a rhythm, you tend to really do well because your opponents are likely in the opposite situation, and then what goes around comes around. You're going to hit a stretch where you end up losing a few. And the same thing happened to Bridgeport. They were practically the worst team in the league before the first of the year, and then they got on a roll and couldn't lose for a month and a half or so, and then they lost a few guys, and their goaltending wasn't as good, and they went for a little bit of a dump in February when the Whale got hot. So it's kind of the way it goes in this league for the most part.
Right, and you know, the Whale had lost a few players. I mean, Hagelin, Mitchell, and Bickle were up there. And then the Rangers, I know they were showcasing these guys, but you know, we got a shot in the arm when Eric Christensen came down, and we got Wolski came down for a couple games, and then those guys ended up getting traded to other clubs. But you know, their presence, you know, helped the team and come out of that January. You know, they were able to get back on track. And as we were saying, they're down 5 points now with 6 games to play. So, and if they come in and don't win the division, they're going to end up playing Bridgeport in the series. And what are your thoughts on that series if those 2 teams do meet?
Well, it really is tight. Like you look at slots 6, 7, and 8 too. It's hardly a sure thing that the team that doesn't win the division and finish 6th. But I think it would be good for both franchises if they had a playoff series. It'd be kind of nice if it was later on, you know. Like that. What really put the Wolfpack Providence rivalry over the top was those 2 or 3 playoff series that were kind of right in a row, and they were later on. And one was a conference final. I think there was 2 conference finals actually. There was one first-round series in there, but the rest of them were all, you know, deep in the playoffs, really, really important, really, really intense. And I think that would be great for both teams if we could have one of those with the Sound Tigers and really amp up the rivalry and make it mean even a little bit more, because it's been funny that this year is an exception, but over the course of the Sound Tigers history, there haven't been a lot of years where that. Obviously, it's a state rivalry, so it means something, but it hasn't meant that much in the standings just because of fate. One team was locked in or wasn't going to make it or whatever, but to have a series of games against them be for life or death in the playoffs, I think would really help.
Right. Well, you know, you had mentioned the win over the Providence Bruins, and I mean, there's one thing in the Civic Center that I've always remembered. There's always Bruin fans in the Civic Center. So, but you know, they don't have to worry about the Bruins this year. But there's plenty of games to look forward to, especially. What did you think about Norfolk with their 23 wins in a row? I mean, how incredible has that been?
Yeah, they've been unbelievable, and you know, they're 4-0 against the Whale. They've got a nice team, but I sure didn't think they were that good. And I'll be interested to see when everybody takes their game to another level in the playoffs, if Norfolk's got another level to take it to, or if the rest of the league, is especially the first round's best of 5 this year, so they're going to face a team that's coming in with nothing to lose and trying to play spoiler, and there's going to be a fair amount of pressure on Norfolk after we had this unbelievable season, longest winning streak I think in the history of professional hockey, and boy, we're going to look pretty bad if we go quietly in the first round.
Sure.
Yeah, they've got a great team. There's no two ways about it, but. You know, I said to the last time we played Norfolk, I did an interview with their captain, and I said, I bet you wish the playoffs started today because they're on such a roll. And you just, if you're Norfolk, you hope that wasn't their season right then, and they're due for a slump when they go in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, there's even a chance that if the Whales slid down a couple places, they could end up playing Norfolk, and then you'd be on that bus again, going back and forth for a couple times maybe, or just right. So it's something.
Now, when you do your public relations with the Whale and the Wolfpack, you know, what's the relationship when it comes to hockey with the print media, now CCC, obviously they're on board, you know, they're airing every game, but what's it like? You know, are they bought into this whole AHL hockey thing, the hockey thing, because, you know, it's usually on page 4 instead of page 1. You know, the team's doing great, and you have to flip all the way to the 4th page because, for some reason, and UConn's not playing that night, so you have to figure out what's going on. What's the relationship been like? I
think the relationship's good. I don't think you're ever going to hear somebody say to you, we don't think your team's worth thinking about, or, you know, we don't believe you're worth covering. It's like any other part of the business, you know, it's governed by numbers, and they're going to give the most space to what sells the most advertising, and what their numbers are telling them is the most exciting. And also, in traditional media now is shrinking so much with the sports section of the newspapers getting so small, newspapers overall getting so small, and all the TV news shows, there's less and less time for sports. So you know, the universe of what they're able to give anybody is getting smaller, and obviously they're going to pinpoint what they know a lot of people want to watch, and you know, I think there's a significant passionate viewer base and reader base that wants to see stuff about hockey and about the Whales specifically, but I don't know that it's as easily measurable as, you know, what you're seeing in TV ratings for UConn and things like that. But no, the relationship, I have to say, I feel like I enjoy a great relationship with just about all the media people in this. They're all good people. I enjoy dealing with them quite a bit, and you know, I think they always tell you that, you know, we'd love to do more, but you know, they're limited by the resources, they're limited by space, they're limited by time. So
we had Paul Doyle on, and he was great. He's done so much for the Connecticut.
Yeah, you got to give the current. I mean, they've amped it up this year with Paul and his blog, and he's doing features every week. So that's more than was happening in the past few years. But you know, I never felt like it was a campaign to snuff out the Wolfpack or the Whale. It was just a question of, you know, their resources are dwindling, and they have to target them where they're sure they're going to get readership.
Yeah. And there's so many good stories really to write about. I mean, the last Wolfpack captain was Dane Byers, and of course he was traded to Springfield. Now he's kind of like this Whale nemesis, you know. And then the fans they have this thing for Dane Byers. And then if you look at it now, you know, Wade Redden was named captain this year, which is the first team Whale captain. But you know, what is Wade Redden like? I mean, I hear lots of good things about him.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's if you met him and didn't know who he was, you'd assume just a humble guy that shows up and does his work and treats people like he would want to be treated, and I think it's it's a credit to him. From day one, he came down. It was a tough situation for him, and media, all kinds of media attention about his situation with the salary cap and his big salary and whatever. And it could have been a real thorn in the side, a real distraction to the team. But right away, his personality sort of diffused all that, and he was very cordial to anybody who wanted to talk to him. He got all the media stuff out of the way, and after a while, it wasn't such a big story anymore. It was just Wade Redden, hockey player, who's coming up and coming to work and doing his job and helping the team. And you know, I think all the players around the team that didn't know him, the younger guys, were sort of waiting to see, you know, what's this guy going to be like? Is he gonna big time everybody, or, you know, is he going to have wads of cash falling out of his pocket? And And he just, he couldn't have been more one of the guys. And I think that's been reflected in his being named captain. And I think the guys, when that was announced, were really genuinely happy for him. Sometimes guys will, in public perception, will say, we like this guy and we're happy for him, whatever. Well, really, they aren't. But that wasn't the case with this. I mean, he really is a salt of the earth kind of guy, and whatever's happened in his past career with the salary, whatever, he, at least to my observation of it anyway, he approaches things the right way. He's good to people, so he deserves everything life's given to him.
Definitely a good choice for captain.
I watched him the other night when I went to the game, and he had a heck of a game in the 3-0 win the other night, and it was great to see him how he pinches in on defense, and he's just such a great leader out there when it comes to positional play and that type of thing. And I was telling Sean the other night, how each player plays their position so well, and he's a prime example of a veteran defenseman. So it was great.
Yeah. Well, one of the big standouts this year is Jonathan Audi Marchessault, who has just been incredible. He's got 70 points as a rookie, and I think he's either 5th or 4th in rookie scoring. You probably know.
He's been a real find. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, he's got some incredible talent.
Fire.
Yeah.
I love when he goes up against the big guys.
Yeah, and he's not afraid to take on the big guys either.
And it's undrafted guy, undersized player, and the story goes that he was really more signed for the ECHL affiliate in Greenville than he was for the Whale, let alone the Rangers. And it's just been an upward trajectory for him ever since he stepped on the ice at prospect camps. And now, I guess at a certain point in your career, you're probably disappointed that nobody wants to give you an NHL contract. Well, he's played this year on an AHL contract, and I'm sure the Rangers are going to lock him up to an NHL deal. But if they ever didn't step up to the plate, there'd be a lot of other teams that were lining up to get his signature on a contract. So it was really, he had to battle for what he got, but he's now, with as well as he's played, he's put himself into a great situation, and those are terrific stories when you know about all the high draft picks and the guys that are supposed to succeed, but when guys come in and they have to earn it and they have to battle their way up from the bottom and open everybody's eyes without having any preconceived notions. To me, those are the best stories to watch.
Right.
Great guy to watch.
Yeah.
Sean Avery.
Yeah, that was my next question.
Big topic.
I was like, what about the guys that didn't really, well, apparently he's retired, but did you talk to him at all? Was he just wasn't interested in playing with the Whale? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a situation that wasn't to his liking as far as not being in the NHL anymore, and he was a really good fit for the Rangers for a while, and that it just wasn't the case anymore, and that was tough on him. And the only thing I can say about Sean Avery is any interaction I've ever had with him, he was fine. Yeah. He treated me fine. I never felt like that there was any problem with the way he dealt with me, and I think he, for the most part, when he was here this year, he kept to himself, and he wasn't a big part of the team. But I don't think he was expected to be. I think
right.
And it's probably a gut-wrenching feeling that it might be towards the end here, towards the career. And it's got to be a lot of pride there. That,
sure. I imagine so.
He's a good player for many years, and all of a sudden you're going down to the AHL, and he's having a tough time with it.
Yeah. We were going to talk a little bit about the goaltenders for a minute or so. We noticed that Chad Johnson has improved a lot this year. I think he's somewhere in the top 12 of the AHL goalies in goals against average. And then Talbot has also played well. He's got like 3 or 4 shutouts, and somewhere in the 30s in the AHL. But one of our last year, my favorite goalie was Dove Grummett Morris. Were you impressed by him when he's doing very well in San Antonio as well?
Yeah, he's a battler. He's not. I think both Talbot and Johnson, they sort of stand out more with their technique, that they sort of fit the mold of what goaltenders are generally taught to do these days in sort of a more controlled game and very, very polished technique, whereas Grummett Morris was kind of just the opposite. He was sort of all over the place and more of a, I would almost compare him to a Dominic Hasek type of guy that just made a lot of goofy saves and never gave up on a puck. And he came in at a situation last year where the Whale needed somebody to grab the reins, and he was able to do it, and it was a lot of fun.
Sure. That's great. You know, it's been just a short period of time here that we had a chance to talk to such a great guy in Hartford. We'll have to have you back. Bob Crawford, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much.
The voice of the Connecticut Whale, and we'll check you next time on Whaler Talk.